An annual report is a document that a company provides to shareholders, creditors, regulators, and other parties after the end of its fiscal year. It typically includes a letter to shareholders from the company's president or CEO, some financial statements, some footnotes to those financial statements, comments from management, and a report from the accounting firm that audited the financial statements and those accompanying footnotes. Let's take a look at an example of one of those annual reports. Here is one for PepsiCo. We'll start with the cover, which looks quite nice, but let's quickly move into the abbreviated table of contents on page 1 of that report. You'll notice from this abbreviated table of contents that what PepsiCo has done is taking its 10K report that it's required by the SEC to file each year and has wrapped around it some additional materials, about 12 or so pages in front of it and another 5 or 6 pages after it. Let's take a look at some of the specific sections here. The first section I want to call your attention to is the letter to shareholders. Most annual reports start with a letter to shareholders from the president or the CEO. They're typically relatively short, and here I'm just going to page through so we get an idea. This one in the PepsiCo annual report runs about 8 pages. So they're typically short, and they're written by the CEO or the president to highlight the very few messages that that CEO or president thinks it's most important for the reader to glean from the report. Whenever I pick up one of these, the first thing I like to do is read this letter because it sets the stage for the story that I expect to see throughout the rest of the annual report. The next part that I'd like to call your attention to is all the material that comes after this report, this letter from the CEO, that looks quite colorful, quite nice, quite pretty. And this is where the company likes to highlight some of its initiatives, its products or its brands, or perhaps even its senior management team or the board of directors. This I like to consider as part of the company's marketing program. It's some marketing materials that the company can use to highlight things that it thinks are important. So you'll see here on page 7 that the company's highlighting some of its brands, page 8, some of its initiatives down a little bit further, and then if we go down to page 11 and 12, we'll see that they're showing us their board of directors and they're talking about their management team. It's important to note that the auditors do not audit this part of the annual report, and as a result, companies have a lot of flexibility and use a lot of creativity when putting this part together because it helps the reader to get an image of the company that the company would like to portray.